Their mental does need to not start out super sluggish. They need something to really explode into the lead as soon as this series gets underway, because that was something we questioned immediately. Their first loss on bank was embarrassing against Na'Vi to start the day. But the other thing is this is a completely different team in terms of how they play. Na'Vi has two players who were trying to create impact, and it was Blur and Doki. If the two of them had a field day, then great. But this is a team that doesn't structure themselves the same way. And even if for some reason Rare, Miracle, or Fantasy doesn't pop off immediately, that's where we'll need to see them really come into their own as a team and group up yet again.
All right, gentlemen, we are moving into the map ban phase. You can see that information up on your screen right now. So, gentlemen, tell me what you're thinking. And I'm coming in fast here, so.
Yeah, so the Chalet ban was kind of the most interesting thing for me at the start. Kind of a curveball. I was expecting DarkZero to ban Bank. You can see FURIA have jumped on that and have decided to pick it up. FURIA are 5-1 since Bank came out, and it's one that DarkZero certainly have a lot of plays on. They also have a lot of losses on. So I'm a little worried for DarkZero in that map too. Map 1, though, we kind of skipped over. Coastline pick, super expected from DZ. They beat both SSG and BDS on this map pretty recently, while FURIA have lost 2 really rough games of Coastline this event. 7-1 to Empire and 7-4 to Damwon Kia.
The only map that we're seeing as a repeat of their series in the group stage is Kafe on the Decider. Last time we saw it, it was 8-6 going in DarkZero's favor. So if only because of recency bias, maybe we can assume DZ goes through and takes it again. Yet for FURIA, it's a map that they've played, I believe in this tournament, they're 1-1 on it, and Kafe is bar none DarkZero's best map. So it's not a case like in the group stage where sometimes you have to play for 3 maps. This is just win 2 and you're done. You're not focused on longevity. But if DarkZero are in fact playing the long game, maybe this goes their way.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your excellent analysis. As always, Jesse and Jacob, but our teams are ready to go. Is FURIA ready to bring the fury, or will they fall to DarkZero? Who will be victorious, and who will be eliminated? Ace and Dez, take it away. Let's go.
Oh, I love it, Tim. It's probably the 5th time she said our names. Thank you very much, Jackie. You're a big fan. Joking. We are a big fan.
All right, Des, calm down.
Not a big fan. More joking at the whole, like, thing I don't even know what that was all about. It was wonderful either way. As wonderful as this series is going to be. Welcome back to Stream A. It's me, Des. This is Tim. We've got another big series on the way, Tim. FURIA versus DarkZero.
It's going to be a good one. I think DarkZero, they've quietly gone about their business, got themselves to this point. Well, quietly. I don't think they've had a grandstand performance yet, is what I'm saying. You know, I think there's probably more to come from them. They've got themselves to this point. It's not been, you know, all just wins straight all the way through. It's not been easy for them. But they're here, and that's the point, and they're getting better each time we see them. I do think this is going to be one of the toughest challenges they've had yet. I will take TSM out of that because obviously TSM going very, very well at the minute, and it was a great game between the two of them. I think FURIA are going to be difficult. It's cross-regional, which DarkZero sometimes struggle with. We saw them do pretty well against Na'Vi earlier on, but I think FURIA are probably going to be a little bit more unpredictable, a little bit more aggressive, and these guys know how to win gunfights, and I think this is going to be a big, big test for DarkZero. If they can come through this one, then I think they could potentially push much further forward.
Well, don't forget they already played each other as well back on Saturday. The last stage of the group stage, it was 2-1 to FURIA at the time, but Tim, it was a screamer. I think we cast that one and we were, what, 43 of 45 possible rounds. It was 8-6 to DarkZero on Kafe, 7-5 on Club, and then 8-7 on Oregon. So, if that game was anything to go by, this is going to be one to remember. And what a way it would do as well to end up our second day of the group stage. Well, it's not even group stage, it's playoffs now. They'll kind of blur into one, but it's still the same sort of format. And one team of these two has to go home. Here we go then with Coastline. First ban coming through is going to be the Thatcher. We spoke about this all week long, Tim. The go-to ban for a number of attacking teams. And sure enough, it started things out well for DarkZero being taken off the board. Second ban coming in is going to be the Jackal coming out from FURIA.
Interesting one. On Coastline, not too much of a surprise. It's going to help the roamers. Jackal able to close them down, obviously, with those frustrating pings that will give away the location. And to be honest, that's sort of the game that I'm expecting from FURIA here on Coastline. I'm expecting sort of a get out on the roam, make an absolute nightmare for DarkZero where they just don't know what they're coming around the corner to, and just try to, you know, give them surprise after surprise is kind of what I'm expecting out of FURIA here. Get aggressive, get up in their faces, don't let them settle. Mirror and Valkyrie will round out the bans. No surprises there, all pretty standard.
I think that Jackal, to be honest with you, is more of a ban for themselves than it is against DarkZero. DarkZero in the last few months not picking this operator base.
No, that's it, I agree. I think it's just for their own peace of mind that we can just go out on their own and not have to deal with it.
And we had a strange ban earlier on that did exactly the same thing. I forget what the ban was now. Man, it was really obscure, and we were like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then we looked at the other side and said, well, they don't play it. Oh, it was a Nook ban, that's it. In the series we cast earlier on, we had a Nook ban. I was like, man, that has got to be targeted. Turns out, no, that the other team had only played it once across like 30-something rounds. It was more just for their own peace of mind. And in fact, it was Na'Vi, because in the second map, they then started playing the Nook, almost as if to say, okay, you banned it away. Clearly, you're scared of it. We'll start doing the same. Quick technical pause coming in before we get underway, because the admin's getting busy under the desk with those PCs, making sure everything is good to go. While the looks of it, Tim, we're starting out in the double bar site as well. That's where DZ are going to kick off their defense. Just before this game on the B stream, we saw SSG just falling down in round 15 of map 3 to MIBR. Games have been coming close today. We had another one earlier on, Elevate versus Rogue, that came all the way to the 15th map round of map 3. It's been ridiculous. Back-to-back series all throughout the day.
It has. It's been, and that's why we're as late as we are. That's why we're just joining you now, because we are getting through them as quick as we can, but we are outside of that fixed schedule because these G8 games just keep taking so long to tie up. But this is the last one for the day, and then we will know who our final 8 teams are. It's the deadliest day of Six Invitational 2022, where we lose 50% of our remaining teams. There's for every team we saw today, for every 2 teams we saw, one of them will be going home by tomorrow.
It's going to be saucy when it comes down to it. Top 8. And we also had it guaranteed, new world champion. So much to go on still in the coming days, because obviously SSG out, NIP out.
G2 not here.
Yeah, fresh called MIBR, the Dark Horses or something to that effect. And I was like, well, they've beaten 2 world champions who have had roster changes since then, or are in poor form, for example. It's one of those that you look at it and go on paper, oh my God, the current world champions are out. Like, yeah, sure, but a lot can change in a year. The meta has changed. Other teams have risen and fallen. It's an ever-changing landscape. And we said ourselves, will you ever see a dynasty be repeated? No, is generally the answer we go to. Tim, you've got a little thing you like to say here to regard, what makes you the best team in the world. It's 2 majors in a year, I think,
the SI in a major or 2 of the majors, that is very dominant in Siege terms. Back-to-back SIs, like you say, with a full 12 months in between them. NIP haven't even done it with 9 months in between them. So, when we get a full 12 months in between them, the difference that comes in there, I don't see it personally.
I'd love to see 12 months where one team does just ride to the top and just completely slam everyone. And I say that, actually, I quite like the open nature of R6 esports. I think I'd hate it if in, some other esports you have, one team that dominates year in, year out. And it's okay, it's all fun watching everyone else try and beat that team, but when all they do is win, it gets a little bit samey after a while. So I'm glad that we get a little bit of a mix-up going on. Here we go then. We're going to get back into things in just a second. It appears that the issue has been mostly rectified. Players are back in and ready to go. So once we're back underway, just as a reminder, this is Coastline, the first map in this best of 3. Map 2, Tim, remind me, I think you wrote it down maybe?
I didn't.
No, didn't write it down. So I didn't either as well. Medics will tell us. Medics, what maps are we on for 2nd and 3rd again? Oh, even he said give me a second. Everyone's so grossly underprepared.
Bank, yes, of course, Bank. Furious.
Screen, Tim.
Too late. Furia snapped it up, given what we saw from DarkZero earlier. The fact that DarkZero didn't ban it out was a little bit of a surprise, because it didn't go very well for them against Na'Vi, and you'd have really thought they'd have been trying to avoid it.
Alrighty, we are underway with Coastline, then our first map in this series. FURIA starting out on the attack, DarkZero on the defense. And as commented before we had that technical pause, Blue Bar and Sunrise going to be where things kick off on the defense. Tim, I'm looking here straight towards DZ and thinking about some of the lessons we've learned over the last couple of days about teams, for example, not bringing a smoke to defend on this site is basically a cardinal sin. You need those smokes to deal with the pool entrance when a plank comes in on towards sofas. So hopefully NJR can persist. Also worth touching on NJR himself, incredible series earlier on today. We had a rehost at one point, he was 11-2 after a rehost. I think in total he was 14-6. Really strong performance today so far. And let's not forget, DarkZero coming into this warmed up. They've already played today. FURIA are in a pretty commanding spot where they haven't had to deal with that just yet.
Exactly, yeah. They've, as you said, been able to do a little bit more preparation maybe. You know, they'll watch the game earlier, I'm absolutely certain of that, to see who they were going to be up against, but to see what they could pick up on, and they picked up on Bank is the top and bottom of what FURIA saw earlier on.
Yep.
Interesting little rappel from Highs here, and this is what I'm talking about, Des, with unpredictability out of FURIA that DarkZero are going to have to deal with. Just looking to get himself a little peek in through the speakers there, making every angle as difficult as possible, FURIA. They haven't got too aggressive as of yet. Fantasy goes in, and he finds himself snapped shut in a Frost Trap. Highs, however, is going to be the one to open us up with a kill onto Eclipse, but we have 2 go back in the direction of DarkZero.
Yeah, 2 very quickly swinging back the other way. Good start coming out for the side of DarkZero. Pushing them back inside the first 60 seconds. And you and I before this game, Tim, was saying you're going to see FURIA coming at pace in this game. And that's exactly how they've started in this first round. Bringing all the firefights to the side of DarkZero. But they're just throwing it back with a nuke. Canadian finding another in the round as well. A nice headshot coming in from the Frost. A 3 versus 2 and Miracle and Lender. Well, they've already got the work cut out for them in round 1, Tim.
They really do. They need to find a kill here and try and bring it back to 2v2. It's going to be practically impossible to get the diffuser down in the current situation. Lender, he's just conscious of somebody playing up above. He needs to get himself moving to go down and support his teammate. Otherwise, this is going to be 2 1v1s, or 3v1s rather, and DarkZero will take that all day long. Lender's going to move himself round to the poolside entrance. I think that's the best bet. He needs to get himself involved, and look at that. As soon as he starts turning heads, Miracle manages to remove one with a kill onto Canadian.
Got the vertical on the hatch here, plus the smoke playing in behind the bar. So DZ very much doubling up on the Sunrise hold, not expecting that FURIA will rotate off to push in through blue. And quite understandable, I guess. I mean, you've got Miracle, who could open up that office wall, but they're committing everything towards this north side. Burning their way through a laser gate will be a surefire indicator that this is where the push is going to come from. A flash does get through, but a smoke is going to block the way. You're not going to be able to see the side of FURIA step forward just yet. And out come the X-Kairos onto this single wall just inside the pool to give them a straight line of access in towards the sofas. They've got to get past, like I say, these smokes. Is a real good one, goes deep, and this is going to force them around the corner. NJR knows that someone's pushing in deep, ducks his head for a couple of seconds. A little bit of damage connecting on towards Lender, but it feels like a pretty tense affair, Tim. Just not quite sure when that big push is going to come in.
NJR with the final Toxic Babe canister. Hyper holding a super long angle here, which isn't going to make life easy for FURIA. It's going to be a difficult shot for them to hit him and NJR. Just looking to push forward there. They've got a little bit of access into sight, but not really as much as they might like. And Frostmats win rounds, Des. Frostmats win rounds. And they're going to win round number 1 as Lender goes in, and he can't do anything. I think it was Miracle, actually. Sorry, Lender had already died. Miracle goes in, can't do anything about that, and he's going to feel it snap shut, and that's the end of the round. 2 out of 3 hitting their mark in round 1 for those Frost Traps.
It's crazy how aggressive that round was as well. I mean, it's Coastline, so you come to expect this level of aggression to some degree, but that was pretty rapid. Penthouse and Theatre, we step up to for round number 2. And on the defensive side, not tons changing. A castle being brought along is a pretty big indicator of what the game plan is going to be, though. Looking to lock off windows, for example, to give the defenders good angles to move down, or good corridors to be able to move down, rotating back across site. And I wouldn't be too surprised, Tim, if the majority of Penthouse and Theatre gets opened up, so they've got these lovely long sight lines. There is no mirror on side, so they can't play behind those, which is why everything needs to be opened.
Certainly will. Like you say, we tend to see a lot of those long angles. You'll get, we refer to it as Swiss cheese, just absolutely full of holes in these walls. You can see the rotations already there into VIP. There'll probably be another one.
You know what they call that in Switzerland, by the way?
Just cheese.
Just cheese, mate.
Just cheese, that one. I wonder if it is. Interesting thought. Anyway, carrying. Well, because cheese is quite specific. If you buy cheddar cheese in cheddar, for example.
Is it, what do you call it, just cheese?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's like cheese.
Still cheddar cheese.
Yeah, cheese is quite
It's like if you go down to
specific,
Cornwall in the UK, would you still buy a Cornish pasty or would it just be a pasty?
No, it's Cornish pasty. They call it, yeah. Some things are quite specific like that.
What about like English tea? Because we call it breakfast tea in some places as well. I've never understood all this, to be honest. Tea, I do like tea, but I don't get the 20 different varieties of tea that you can get.
I mean, there's more than that.
Pass.
A lot more than that.
Pass.
FURIA, they're not going to want to pass on another round, as they've already let DarkZero have that first one, and they're going to be looking to move in and get some retribution here. It's attacking onto Penthouse. It's been opened up absolutely everywhere There's angles to every corner of this site, every corner of the top floor of this map coming out from that site, and those work both ways. Something DarkZero need to make sure they remember. That's unfortunate.
It is a little bit. Opened up like Swiss cheese, or if you're in Switzerland, like cheese, you might turn around and say. It just gives them those angles in towards the double window. Stops them getting in there. They can play around 90 if they so choose. That's why currently we've got a couple of members of DarkZero dancing around 90. They know that they've got the ability to make use of this corridor because, again, thanks to castle barricades, thanks to what they've got opened up, they can afford to play inside here. The only worry has to be what goes on downstairs. So they'll be relying on the default cam inside a lobby, I imagine, to keep that information flowing. And here comes a tried and tested push through. They want to get their way inside of VIP, and rather than actually opening it up to be able to step inside, they're just opening up a number of, well, double, I guess, X-Kairos pellet holes. That's more to give you the sight lines in, as you're seeing being used here. They may well turn around and open one up eventually. They can get through, and that's going to go in this bottom corner. There we go. Miracle expending all of them to get that opened up, and they'll be able to step through into VIP.
Really wanting to get control of it. Heise is going to get on the double window as well. Once you've got VIP and double window, you're pretty much in control of Penthouse then, but there's going to be a lot of work needs doing before that can happen. Nades start raining out. Not going to be successful in finding any damage onto anybody, but they will clear out a Goyo shield. Rare manages to find Canadian, and that means the FURIA push is underway. Fantasy not going into a Frostmat this time. Instead, he's going to find a headshot. Miracle onto Pamba, and it's all starting to fall apart.
Very quickly, NJR's down to about 30 HP. Plan coming in from Miracle. Fantasy finally put on his backside, but they're not going to worry too much about that because the time that he was exerting, the pressure that he was giving to the last two members of DarkZero means that plan goes down successfully, and this is going to be so difficult to retake. It always is. Eclipse finding at least one back, but you've got to deal with a window, potentially two window players at this point, and one that could drop in at a moment's notice. Miracle picking up NJR. Eclipse left in a big clutch situation. Got to find himself three. Got to spray through the sofa and find himself another. It's going to be ace or bust for Eclipse. He's got to kill every single one, but the difficulty is they're on windows, they're on hatches. Heise from on high finds the closing kill. Second round going the way of FURIA.
Always going to be a tough one for FURIA. Sorry for DZ there. Once they'd got that plant down, you had, like you say, man on the window. He was actually just inside of it because he'd repelled in, but you had the hatch covered. They knew where you were coming from. There was just too much stacked against them. So FURIA with a successful first attack, and it was a nice one. Push into VIP, push double window, find a couple of kills, and in you go. It was as simple as that. It doesn't get much more straightforward inside a siege. We're going to be coming into round 3 at even Stevens at the minute. 1-1 on the scoreboard, and it's going to be hooker and billiards.
Tim, look what they're picking. That is going to sound well dodged on a microphone, by the way. They're picking up the Osa more than anything else I'm excited about. DarkZero are a team that have employed Osa on this map throughout the competition. We've used it to push through Aqua. We've seen it pushed in through service entrance. Now, it's FURIA having a good swing of the bat and bringing it along with the Flores, as you mentioned. The Flores, I think, to me, is more of a reaction to seeing the Goyo picked up, and they assume DarkZero will take it a little more often. Best way to get rid of those shields, if you aren't seeing Mute Mozzie being brought every single round, is always going to be those Rotero drones. I quite like how it's added a second option because in a way it does stop Wamai and Jaeger being the must-pick operators in the current meta that we're in, right? You have to bring along the Roteros in case where there are too many of those. If they don't bring along any Mutes or Mozzies, for example, well, those Roteros are going to be able to fly through and pick up some things for free. That's exactly what they're looking for in this round, namely the shield coming out of NJR. That is going to be the #1 focus. And the bulletproofs. Well, bulletproof single.
Bulletproof single, which is just over to the left-hand side of the rotate from billiards to hooker, and it's going to look out towards aquarium to try and feed information on anybody coming in for a potential plant. Now, Fantasy moving like lightning here. Already inside of the map on the Iana. He's on the hunt. Does he know that there's one inside a bathroom? He's moved his way through security. I don't think he does this because he's going to head straight upstairs, straight into luggage. He's looking to claim aquarium for them, but he's obviously going to have to be very aware of the potential for a flank. Looks like he does a 180. And he's just come back to support Heise in this push of theatre, but that's unreal. He takes out the default cam first, which lets Eclipse know that he's coming, but somehow Fantasy manages to just wheel around and find the man inside of theatre, and that starts giving a little bit of map control over to FURIA.
Just a great read, I think, by Fantasy, if nothing else, right? Was probably waiting for that camera to turn and flash blue, which means someone's looking at him, then shoots it out. It's why he didn't pull the trigger as soon as he got at the top of White Stairs, but a great flick across to bring down Eclipse, who was sat inside of theatre. 5 versus 4. for FURIA. Still tons of time to work with here, Tim. What makes me a bit nervous for the side of DarkZero is the utility. There's 4 nades to come through. There's 4 flashbangs remaining that they can use to burn through any of those Wamai magnets that are scattered around the map, and they've still got to deal with an Osa. 5 versus 3 as Highs gets yet another.
I did say coming into this that I thought FURIA would play an aggressive style and get up in the face of DarkZero, and I was a little bit concerned about exactly how the North American side were going to handle that sort of pressure. And right now, Des, they're not handling it very well because FURIA are having the run of things here. Osa Shield is going to be deployed in 2 directions. That's going to allow them not only to cover the plant, but also to cover the potential flank. It's a flawless round. They don't need to get the case down. And DarkZero really on the back foot there in Hooker and Billiards.
Yeah, they're being absolutely ravaged here so far, Tim. It is not looking pretty. And that was even really without the Osa doing a ton of work. They were just like, hey, freebie, 5 for us. Highs, 2 in the mid-round as well. Just not really stacking up any level of competition so far. I'll give a lean to DarkZero. And I've been saying this a lot today to a number of people. It's a tale of 2 halves. Wait until we see what happens in the second before we draw any big, strong assessments. Sometimes it will carry on and FURIA will just steamroll over DarkZero, but let's not forget that DarkZero lost bank in their series earlier on against Na'Vi 7-2. That was the first map, and then they came back. And I caught up with Canadian earlier on. We were both going to the restroom and asked him, what happened on bank? And he just said, we just weren't awake, to be honest with you. First game of the day, we weren't properly ready for it. We then got our stuff together ready for maps 2 and 3. We've said already that they've had chance to play a series today, so they should be a bit more turned on than they were earlier on. So far, a little bit slow, but again, I will wait for round 7 to 12, assuming we see all the way up to 12. Let's see how double bar goes down, though, Tim. So far, it's avoiding stepping inside a kitchen, which is quite curious. That normally is the go-to site for many a team. Perhaps they're fearful of the Osa and the damage that it can do. We saw it used by DarkZero before, so they more than anyone should know what it can achieve.
They should. I think Osa's in an interesting place. We've not seen too much of it yet, so I think there's a bit of development to do around the operator. In theory, it should be reasonably easily dealt with. You bring along some impact nades, you bring along a nitro, you deal with the shields. But it's not always that straightforward because we look at the defenders and every bit of utility is always accounted for. Do you know what I mean, Des? Yeah. It's like you're bringing along, if anything, they'd bring more utility if they could. They want that entrance covered. They want barbed wire there. They need a shield on that angle. They need a bulletproof camera there. And so it's not always easy to actually dedicate those slots to bring in enough explosives to be able to deal with it. So it's quite an interesting one, really. You've got to have that little bit of counterplay outside of the game to think, are they going to bring it? Are they not going to bring it? How are we going to handle it?
They've got 4 frags on side, they've got 2 smokes in back pocket. They've chewed through a lot of these flashes from Miracle already in trying to clear out the utility inside of the site itself. Canadian, forced away from the back of his shield, has now got to take a slightly more defensive position. Just tucking himself in behind the bar at this point of day. That's a bit of a kicker. Imagine rappelling up and just not having any expectation someone's going to be stood there. It's like Chucky being at your window on Halloween. It's just one of the worst things you can imagine, Tim.
Honestly, it needs to happen. What I like from DarkZero there is that is a message to me that, right, you want to play aggressive, we're going to fight fire with fire. We're going to come right up to those windows, we're going to have a look, we're going to surprise you, and that is what it needs. That's what will put the brakes on FURIA if they think that they're going to suffer to it as well. For the time being, they're trying to push Hyper and will push Hyper out of Hooker. They decided that they didn't want to have to deal with those vertical challenges. Rare gets inside and makes sure that's the case. He can actually start using them in reverse now, so just need to be careful about exactly where they leave themselves. I think he knows that Hyper's underneath him, but they're both sort of doing a little bit of a merry dance around each other at the minute, trying to find anything, won't get a sniff, and now he's going to be able to potentially push down the Cool Vibes stairs.
By my measure, that was the first opening kill for DarkZero on this map as well. 3 in a row for the side of FURIA. The last one, of course, being a straight flawless as well, not giving a single one back. The round prior, they found 3 in a row. So they've warmed into the game across the 3 rounds. This is the first time they've been given a little bit of an impediment by DarkZero, something to consider and think about and potentially pause. Hyper finding a second in the round, really starting to deepen the woes for FURIA in this round, taking Fantasy, the go-to star player for this team, off the board.
The problem here is, Des, the Osa shield is down, it's established, and there's no explosives to deal with it. Toxic Babe canister goes out too late, Diffuser is planted. How do they deal with this now? 2 versus 2 as Highs manages to mop up 2 on the top floor. Rare's looking for the vertical, and it's going to be very difficult. I mean, there is a world where DarkZero could potentially use that shield to their advantage to protect them whilst disabling the diffuser. It works both ways, but it's not going to be easy for them to get into position. NJR finds Rare, Pamba and NJR, they have it to do, and he's going to use that shield. Highs is looking for the angle here. I'm not sure he's going to be able to find it, and if the hatch drop is covered, which it is, DarkZero with a beautiful retake there. Well played from them.
Really well done, absolutely. Yes, slightly using the Ossa shield against them, but had the laser gate on side as well. Plenty to protect them. No one on the outside from FURIA to attack in from the pool entrance side. It's good that they're getting themselves back into things now, because that leaves us at 2 apiece as well. It's not quite an absolute rollover for the side of FURIA, and instead it might just take a little bit of warming into things. That's their second round on the defense here on Coastline. Now we finally step across to the, I guess for DarkZero, what they would probably describe as the offsite, given we haven't seen it yet out of the 4-site rotation we've been through. It's going to be Kitchen and Service in round number 5.
Interesting that they've left this site to the end. We tend to see Kitchen Service a lot more.
It's the opener, really.
Yeah, generally speaking, it tends to be a primary site at the minute, but they're going to do 4 rounds before they even try to see if they can get it over the line, to see if they can get another round on the board. Maybe they've been saving it for when they felt they really needed it, but it means they're only going to get to play it once in their rotation now if they win it. So, you know, if you do win it, you might have thought, oh, we could have had 2 rounds out of that potentially. DarkZero, I'm sure, have got a plan in mind, though. They have this time brought along impact nades. We've got 4 on side, so they might just be thinking towards needing to deal with an Ossa here. They don't have one on side, so it's not the end of the world, but that could just be FURIA playing into it a little bit and just controlling some of the utility that's getting brought along.
A little bit of a merry dance around, isn't it? You know, we saw the Flores coming out earlier, expecting to see a Goyo. There was no Goyo. This round, you're seeing that adaptation coming in. Just the kind of teams doing a dance around each other, not just around hatches like we saw in the last round, but also in terms of the operators they're bringing along into each round. On the downstairs, once again, we've got Fantasy pushing in very aggressive. And Tim, this is something I commended FURIA for in their game against TSM. They're not a slow team. They won't sit there and drone something out for 2 minutes before making a move. They're willing to take the risk versus reward moments where they'll say, look, let's push in quite aggressively. We've done a bit of droning in the pre. A good bit of teamwork coming in there as Highs finishes off the damage that came in primarily from Fantasy with the nade before getting traded out. That risk versus reward gameplay I spoke about, you're seeing it come through there in spades because Eclipse, clearly undroned inside of security, finds one back.
Exactly that, and that's what you get sometimes when you're trying to move as quickly and as aggressively as FURIA right now. Things will get missed as, and DarkZero can sort of steer into that skid and try to take advantage of exactly that. Now then, they're going to be moving in and getting top floor control. Hyper is currently positioned on those Cool Vibe stairs, so he could come up and run a little bit of a mock here if given the opportunity, but I think that FURIA will likely have that angle covered and locked down. Very aware of the rest of the top floor as well. They certainly don't want to be giving themselves over to any nasty little flanks here. Eclipse is just going to take a little pot shot up through the ceiling. He's not going to get any joy, but you never know.
You never know, Tim. You truly don't know. Halfway into the round then, and with Fantasy off the board, you can see where the pace has sort of slowed down a little bit here, Tim. That kind of burst of aggression in the early round is now fell by the wayside as we settle into a much more standard level of round, where it's all about the drone work and Hyper. Not too sure about that one, Chief. Miracle, also clearly not too sure. NJR, I thought for a second there, might find himself losing out. He's going to cover this diffuser in a cloud of gas just to try and burn through the clock a little bit more. Highs trying to nade him out, puts him down to about half HP, sends him running for the hills. So a little bit of an exchange there in the mid-round, Tim, and things go back to being slow once again.
3 versus 3, nice and level coming into the final minute. Diffuser recovered by Lender. He's able to start thinking about pushing into service, but he's going to need some support before he does. Highs is up above and can try to use those vertical angles, and Rare's looking to move in. He's going to get caught out here. No, how does he hit that shot? Canadian had every advantage there. Saw the man coming, knew exactly where he was and started shooting first, but somehow Rare finds a headshot. Eclipse, this is just one absolute killer after another. Eclipse across the main courtyard finds Rare with a headshot. 2v2. FURIA still trying to get deep enough into sight to put the diffuser down.
They've matched each other blow for blow though, Tim, as you say, down to a 2 versus 2 with about 20 seconds to play. The challenge coming in from courtyard, going to be a bit of a stinger. This is where they've got to make a move, but Hyde, he wins the reverse challenge coming out from NJR. Plants going down from Lender as he's tucked himself into the corner of Kitchen. Eclipse has got to try retake in through bathroom, finds the one man, down goes the defuse, sees the gun as well. Can he clip it out here? A 3k in the round, a 1 versus 1, which he wins into a quad kill in the round. It's going to stick the disable. DarkZero go to 3 and 2.
My. It's going to be one of those nights, Des. What a performance in that round from Eclipse. He's just gone Kansan.
I've been waiting for that to come out. Beautiful.
We said we were going to try and bring it.
We did. For those who missed it earlier on, I think it was Lycan of SSG who joked about it on Twitter, said, I've already started saying, I was going to go Kansan here far too much.
I think the players would probably prefer us to say he's just gone Eclipse there. Which he really did. I mean, that was a great clutch from him. There was a couple of things that happened in there. Lender did everything right. Watch him throw the nade out now. See the nade? So that's to stop him pushing in through the door. Lender should have known then that the challenge is only going to come from the rotate, but still Eclipse manages to peek around and get the headshot onto it. It was absolutely beautiful from Eclipse. Perfectly played.
Got to match fire with fire. Play aggressive at the right time. Exactly what he did. Gets a critical round for DarkZero as we go back into Penthouse and Theatre. We saw this earlier on in round 2. FURIA did come out on top with 2 members still remaining. If you recall, they did get the plant down there as well, Tim. So it's all about seeing what can change in this round for DarkZero. They're the ones who have got to make changes, who've got to buck up their ideas and do something a little bit different.
They do. They've had 3 plants so far, FURIA, but only 2 rounds on the board. And it's because DarkZero have been playing pretty well in the retake. 2 of those rounds have been retaken. 3 plants and only 1 round has come from that for FURIA. So as much as the aggression is working, it's getting them into site. I feel like DarkZero are sort of almost allowing them to aggress into site. They're like, yep, okay, put your diffuser. Yeah, we've got the retake. And they're sort of comfortable in that. The positioning has been good. Fair enough, Eclipse on a 1v2 in the last one. I'm surprised that he wasn't covered off when he came into service. He got an absolute freebie on the man bar kitchen window. Considering he'd already been challenged from Courtyard and a further challenge didn't come, you've got to expect that Eclipse has maybe relocated.
Some sites on this map do really lean in towards retakes, right? Thinking about Kitchen, especially Fantasy, a big opener on towards Hyper. I think almost found Eclipse, or maybe that was High, sorry. Almost getting the second one back on the other side. Would have been a dream opener for FURIA. For now, they'll have to settle with just one. But yeah, that retake point, I always use Kitchen Service as a great example. When you lose vertical control, defenders tend to step off site and then push back in later on once the execute begins. And this map can lean into that kind of play style. Equally, it can be an absolute nightmare because of the proximity of things like windows and external facing doorways. Defenders or attackers, can just get really far outside and look to challenge from a distance. NJR, 1 back the other way. So once again, Tim, at that 2-minute mark, we're in a 4 versus 4. It's so weird how that keeps happening.
Really is, isn't it? Pamba manages to find 1 onto Rare. 4 versus 3 now. 3 versus... No! Eclipse manages to get the kill. I thought Fantasy might win that one out, but absolutely not. It's going to be 4 versus 2. And FURIA, they're staring down the barrel of a 2-4-1/2 on the scoreboard here. On the attack of Coastline, you'd have really hoped, if you're a FURIA fan, that they might have picked up a little bit more. They've brought the aggression, they've brought a bit of flair, but it's just not really getting them anywhere at the minute. DarkZero are looking, honestly, Des, possibly the most solid that I've seen so far at this tournament.
I'll go far as agreeing with you on that one. Yeah, they've been a bit up and down.
This is up there. It's up there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I almost go as far as saying, again, the TSM game, although they lost it, was a really good game. They were very competitive throughout. It was really enthralling to watch, especially when you had the M&M Empire game in the morning that turned into a bit of a who's got the more competent individual fraggers. It was very team-based when it came round to that fixture. We know DarkZero have got it inside them. The problem is now you're hitting that stage in the tournament where consistency is everything. You've got to give performances day after day. You can't use the excuse, we just had a bad map, because that bad map can cost you an entire series.
Send you home, and this is turning into a bad map for FURIA. They've been completely unable to get a hold of VIP. Pamba with another 2 to close that out. And DarkZero looking very solid on the defense. They get themselves through to the half in quick fashion there. 4-2 now against FURIA, and heading on to the attack with a lot of work for the Brazilians to do here on Coastline. So much so, Des, that they feel like they need a little tactical pause to start doing some of it.
Yeah, taking their own time here, just coming into the second half. We spoke before about, why you're just changing sides. Why would you do this now? Like, normally when you're going onto the attacking side, you'll take that time out, because something that one of the coaches I spoke to told me about was generally on the attacking side, you have less time to sort of correct issues. Defenders, if you know what your setup is, you can talk during the prep phase, you can talk during the round end. Attackers don't really get that luxury. But here, FURIA are taking this time out, coming into the defensive side of things. The only real thing I can think of as to why they've called this now is something to do with comms, or something to do with how they're kind of approaching the game, right? You can see at the back, coach having a good chat, making sure they know what's going on here, just trying to get them all back on that middle level that Fresh and Friends Academy always aims for, Tim. That's what they're trying to reset here. Penthouse and Theatre looking to be our first site, though.
That's it. You know, if you're having it at the switch of the half there, it's obviously something more to do with fundamentals. It's not, you know, there's no point saying, right, we need to get more aggressive on the entry, because you're not doing it in the same way anymore, because you're coming onto the defence. So it's not your job to get into the map anymore. You can see the FURIA boys just high-fiving there. They're ready to go. They're looking confident. As I said, these are a team that they're not going to worry about a few rounds down. They know all about coming back. They know all about coming back against North American teams, Des. If you remember, we saw it. We saw it firsthand against SSG. They really did give them nightmares after that one, I think. But DarkZero, they've got themselves a nice foundation. They're looking good. They look confident. They just need to carry that through to the attack now and start finding those entry kills, because they've been playing a lot of these rounds from behind.
They are playing this round with 6 frags on side. Absolutely brilliant what they're looking to do here, because it's going to be incredibly explosive, likely coming in from below, or just through the windows in towards the site. Of course, you've got to be careful of the Jaeger. There is no Wamai on side, which we saw in the first half. You know, DarkZero were bringing along the Wamai, much more preferred over bringing along the Jaeger. Those discs, of course, you get far more of them than you do ADSs, albeit ADSs can recharge, so hey. The other side to look at, of course, is Highs, who's been 9-4 so far. Top fragging for the side of FURIA has now been put on clash duty. So your top guy is doing all the gunning, is being put onto a much more passive role here. Not 100% sure how I feel about that in general. Of course, we'll see if it works out. One thing you're looking for in this round really is going to be the clock. DarkZero need to be quite pacey, otherwise that clash only gets stronger the longer the round goes on.
Hyper wasting a bunch of time with his drone there, just zipping back and forward under the sofa. He knew he was going to lose it, but if you can waste 5 to 10 seconds of the prep phase, why not? It might just give you an opportunity to catch somebody out when they're a little bit behind on that setup. Hyper watching that double window, very conscious of the potential for jump outs and peaks coming out of FURIA, given the aggressive nature that we've seen them play with so far. It wouldn't be too much of a surprise, but all of DarkZero safely to where they want to be pretty much, which is largely up on the rooftop. They're going to be opening the hatch, looking for the Penthouse Theatre drop. Just to basically to pressure directly onto site. Eclipse is going to take Fantasy out with a beautiful nade there. So they've got the hatch, they've got Fantasy taken down. DarkZero are looking pretty good here, but they need to start thinking a little bit further away from site. As I said, going through to the hatch, absolutely fine. Pressure immediately onto site, but they need to clear out VIP, and it looks like that's the job that's underway.
Absolutely. No nades to maybe come through first, or to have these Roteros come singing through, which is exactly what Canadian's job is going to be. Looking for whatever utility you can find here. Has already found the bulletproof, which shall go very, very easily. Of course, worth noting that with those EMPs, you can, well, with the EMPs, with the bulletproofs, you can EMP blast a drone as it comes towards you, but the smart thing being done there was to get it underneath the sofa. Bulletproof gone, now the shield's gone. So they are slowly destroying this theatre hold that FURIA could be employing here, and just forcing them deeper and deeper into the sites, which gives more room to think about and execute.
Drone training in, and we've got DarkZero underneath with the Finker and the sledge. Wonder what they're doing under
I
there,
do wonder, Tim. You know, I can't imagine they must have some really good ideas here on what they can do with utility,
maybe something
right?
new, something that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if FURIA can figure out what they're trying to do underneath there, and maybe they'll go and try and do something about it. Who knows? Lender's having a look through the floor there, see if he can find anything. Can't see his man. NJR's going to dip away, still 2 nades in hand, so he's not going to take those chances just yet. Lender does take a ton of damage, though, and that was Hyper with a nade from underneath. Who'd have expected it, Des?
Yeah, Jesus, super weird that, Tim. Really, really strange. I mean, at this point, Rare's kind of acknowledged, okay, we are getting naded from below here. We need to have some downstairs control. NJR's almost trying to bait it out. Look, they know that he's he's there. He's being yellow pinged on his journey through the map. So all it's going to take is someone to catch up behind him and get him shut out of the round. Eclipse goes down, but look at that back and forth. Pamba does collect rare, but my God, it's turned into a slaughter for DarkZero as the kill feed turns orange. Miracle left in a 1 versus 4. And Tim, we came in a little bit worried about what we'd see from DarkZero. All we're seeing so far is total domination.
Well, that's it. I was concerned about how they were going to deal with the aggressive nature of a team like FURIA that got right up in their faces. But I think the game earlier has actually worked wonders for DarkZero, because against Na'Vi we saw Pamba, we saw Hyper, we saw them really growing into the game and getting more and more and more kills. NJR after that rehost, if you remember, like 11 kills between then and I think it was 11 between then and the end of the round. You know, the end of the game, sorry, it was brilliant from them, and the fact that they've had that game where they've been able to go in and start finding the shots is fantastic for them. And it's really paying dividends here because they're just winning gunfight after gunfight. It's just, look at the consistency across 9-6-5. You know, you've got 20 kills there between your top 3 players. They're absolutely flying at the minute.
And despite High's effort on the other side, it's just simply...
You've got Lender on 0.
And Fantasy on 3.
It's a problem. You know, they're not keeping up in the gunfights. I'm not singling anybody out, but FURIA, whilst bringing that aggression, they're not getting anything out of it. And DarkZero have just absorbed it brilliantly on defence, and now they're flipping it on its head and saying, right, there's some of it back.
And Lender, sorry, had a phenomenal game on Kafe, if you recall, against TSM. You know, lights out performance, really putting up big numbers. So far, quiet. However, the one thing I'll give to FURIA again is, just like DarkZero said, map 1 can be a bit of a snoozer at points. I guess the nice thing in their favour here is this wasn't their map pick. They did choose map number 2 to go into Banks. For DarkZero, they should be feeling comfortable on a map like this. High's looking to keep himself cheeky out towards the front door here, down towards lobby. Hoping someone runs in front of his line of sight, but DarkZero, they're a little bit too wise to get caught out by that one, and nothing will come of it.
Just going to keep having a look, but as you say, he's not going to get any joy there, especially not once they've heard the barricade knocked or the window glass smashed. They're not going to have any part of that one. DarkZero, they're not going to be looking for any challenge. Look at that, absolutely free. Pamba drops in the Twitch drone onto the little ledge, manages to clear out a lot of the utility at the top of Cool Vibes, and that is going to make life any easier for FURIA on the defence here, because they've just lost a ton of utility there, including mute jammers, which is going to potentially allow the wall to be opened up. It's going to potentially allow drones to get in and out of there. It just makes a little bit of a nightmare for them. The Rotero drone being able to serve both of those functions, of course.
Absolutely. Looking out here towards the hookah balcony is their sort of starting point. There are 2 of them out here for the side of DarkZero. You've also got Canadian doing his usual business here, dropping these Flores drones in, trying to see what he can find. He's going to get that one shot out. I was going to say the man was staring straight at it. Absolutely no issue at all.
Still 5v5, nearly halfway through the round. DarkZero have been unable to find a starter just yet. They're trying to get inside of the map. Eclipse is working on that hooker balcony. It's sort of a two-phase approach here. They're sending a few directly to site, try and pressure and look like they're moving in there, and then try and do some other stuff in the background, from luggage, from aquarium, to try and get these Roteros in and soften up the south side of the site. But FURIA are looking pretty solid at the minute. They're not being pushed around. They're happy playing where they're playing, and DarkZero not really able to disrupt them as of yet.
Canadian's dying to get rid of that bulletproof that sat inside the single wall that sits between the 2 sites. As of yet, unable to do so. Still there to slightly tuck down, as you can see. And every single time he's at a triangle, there's always someone there just ready to shoot it out and deal with it. Pamba droning out underneath to make sure no one is lurking around. NJR, though, first of all, Lender with his first kill on the board in the game, Tim.
An important one that it is at that, managing to get themselves a little bit of an advantage. Kills going in either direction, but it's that man again, Eclipse, managing to lock one down, 3v2, but he's got himself cornered here. Gets another. Eclipse is going absolutely huge on this game so far. 11-5, and you just feel like there's more to come from him yet. He's going to watch Cool Vibe stairs, but that's not really where the pressure is going to come from. They need to get something going here, DarkZero. 25 seconds. Eclipse has diffuser in hand, so has an opportunity. Surely you know he's on the rotate.
I was about to say.
He saw the bullets, but didn't react to them. Pambazoo gets 1. Can he get 2? He knows the man's behind there. He doesn't have the case in hand, so he can try and get it.
Oh!
I thought he found it, Des. I thought he found it. I thought he threaded the needle then, but no. Fantasy, he reacts quickest, and FURIA managed to take their first defence.
Got him gassed up as well. Look at it. Love it.
It doesn't take much for FURIA. That's the thing.
It's
That's
Twister.
why they're dangerous.
It's just Twister through and through. He's just so keen to keep that energy high, right? And we spoke about this for DarkZero earlier on in their game against Na'Vi. Even when they won, very reserved, quite low energy, quite chilled out overall. You'll see more of that. Huh?
Unusual for them.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like a rivalry thing for DarkZero. Like Canadian, you know what he's like when he plays against.
I was going to say unusual for any side with Canadian on it.
Yeah. To be fair, I think out of the non-Latam teams, because they are in a class of their own when it comes to this, the noise being made by the teams has primarily come from SSG and DarkZero.
Yes.
They have been the noisy boys here. And while the halls may fall very silent from any non-Latam teams, if DarkZero can't take away this series, they are up 5-3, so it's not looking too bad for them right now. So we head down into Blue Bar and Sunrise with FURIA on the defense. Things have been looking a little bit close the last couple of rounds. Yes, they took away that last one, but it came down onto a dime. It was a 1 versus 1. The 2 rounds prior to that, round 6 and round 7, very, very dominant in the favor of DarkZero. So although they've got 1 round on the board, I'm not convinced we're yet going to see FURIA fully fight back into this game.
No, I think DarkZero have definitely been the better of the 2 teams here on Coastline so far. They've had the run of things. They've got a couple of big performers coming out as well, particularly Eclipse. Not often you see the man carrying the briefcase also sitting on 11 kills.
I see it all the time when we sat together.
Oh, well, obviously, of course. You know, I'm talking about a more general audience, Des.
I wasn't about yours, I was about Fresh when you die and he picks up the
fantastic,
case.
Brilliant, thank you. Got him.
Got him.
We're going to have the repel onto Sunrise. It's all too easy for Fantasy, but he can't hit his shots there. Hyper just managing to get himself away. He was obviously aware that maybe the peak was going to come because he reacted extremely quickly to that one. And it's going to just mean that he doesn't lose too much. Uses some of those nanobots just to juice up, so he's back up to about 75 health there and keeps himself in the round.
Absolutely. Here comes that step forward. Fantasy getting into a little bit of a hairy engagement early in the round. Pamba doing quite a bit of damage to him. And off he goes towards the high wind, scattered out towards site. Once again going to work his way down towards Hookah and Billy. So rejoin up with Rare, who's also holding out on that side of the map. Miracle on site, and then it's Highs and Lender the ones looking to cause trouble out towards the east.
Great work from the Oryx of Fantasy there. He's been very mobile around the map. He's going to take out a Rotero drone with him now as well. And he's making life difficult for DarkZero at every turn. They try and get in the map. They try and get on a balcony. They try and get utility in. And he's not having any of it at all. Hyper, he's looking to hunt down the roamer who is underneath. It's going to be Lender playing down there at the bottom of the white stairs. Of course, DarkZero attacking onto Sunrise here, Des. And they're playing this as a more of a whole map sort of game.
That was a little bit cheeky there with that drop coming in from Rare. Thought he might lose his head as they did see it for a brief second. But elsewhere, it's Miracle falling down. The smoke taken off the board, Tim. That's a real stinger for this site. I'm always talking about the requirement for a smoke to be alive, to smoke off sofas when a plant comes in. Now that he's gone, they don't really have a lot to go on outside of the C4 coming out of Lender, or of course those trusty guns in their hands. Out comes Rare, gets a kill onto Eclipse. That hero for DZ taken out of the round.
That's what FURIA, it feels like they need is, you know, we saw DarkZero doing it with Hyper right up at the window in their faces, trying to match that aggression, and it's just tempered FURIA a little bit. So the run out from Rare is, you know, maybe the catalyst, maybe the spark that'll just fire the rest of the team up and get them going, but it hasn't been successful yet. 4-3 in favour of DarkZero, 4-2 now as NJR finds Fantasy, and it's all going from bad to worse for the Brazilians here. The vertical angle's getting opened up, NJR just hunting for kills left, right, centre. Highs manages to find Hyper, and we find ourselves now 3 versus 2, 30 seconds left to go, and we've got utility being dumped into site. DarkZero feel like they're in a position to start thinking about getting a plant down here. They've got Canadian inside a site, but NJR had to go and recover that diffuser. Pamba, however, manages to find Highs. 14 seconds left to go. Can NJR get back in time? Yes, he certainly can. He's going to be putting that case down on the ground, and it's all up to Lender. 1 kill is going to have to become 4, Des, and it can't even become 2 as Pambazoo shuts him down, and that's going to be DarkZero getting themselves onto map point on Coastline.
Like I say, Tim, when they win DarkZero, it has generally been very dominant. The one round that we've seen FURIA win in this half has been with 1 man left alive, stuck in a 1 versus 1. It doesn't feel as close as maybe that 1 round suggests, because DarkZero are indeed running away with this. FURIA stepping back once again to Penthouse and Theatre. It's where we played in round 7, and things didn't look so peachy for them then. DarkZero ending that round with 4 men still left alive. Just feels like they haven't really got an answer, even with the clash of Highs being present last time around. it just didn't work out for them.
No, it didn't really have any impact on the round. It was Penthouse, it was their first defence, and they lost it. He just couldn't really get himself into the game. DarkZero dealt with it very, very well, and I'm sure that they're going to probably be doing the same again, except it's been swapped out. He's gone for the 6th pick. He's going to bring along the Echo instead. It's going to be Yokai drones instead of a shield to try and bring that frustration.
Okay. I really want to say, like, straight away, it doesn't feel like that's being picked for the late round. It's not being picked for the executes because DarkZero, I'd say relatively regularly, aren't leaving it until the last 5 seconds or so to try and stick a plant. There's a bit more time being left there to give themselves some wiggle room, which makes me think those Yokais are going to be used in the more active way we've seen a number of Echo players doing. That is, you hop on the Yokai, you play a little bit of robot wars with the enemy drones, you get it out in the map, you feed information back to your roamers, and you look to get yourself nice and busy. So for Highs, he wants to dig himself away on site somewhere safe where he won't find himself getting picked out, and try and keep himself generally into a bit of a busybody. Here, at least, for the side of DarkZero, they're starting most of them out towards this front side. They're going to work their way across, get up on the roof, smash the hatch out, all the good stuff you come to expect, and likely try and look for some good control inside of VIP.
The Oryx just climbing up the hatch there. The quickest way to go if you want to change floors. Fantasy just heading up to the top. Going to be getting himself into Hooker before pushing forward and getting himself around the map. He showed a great capacity for it last time around in the last round. Really made a nuisance of himself, but it still wasn't enough for FURIA. You may want to drop underneath. We know that DarkZero are likely to try and use some of those nades. They've got quite a few on side, 6 in total, and we know they like to get underneath and try to light up the feet of the defenders inside a site, and they've had a lot of success with it.
We already saw that in an earlier round as well. 2 of them playing on the downstairs for a short time before they moved away. And very cleverly read into Rare, who was trying to flank them, if you remember, Tim. He came down through kitchen and he was being yellow pinged the whole way through. They just knew what was coming. Pamba, with a well-tucked-in drone, going to keep a very close eye on Fantasy. It's kind of surprised they can't see it, but I think because it's sat in the sort of debris of a smashed vase, it's just very hard to identify.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Miracle, he's on the Cool Vibe stairs. He's looking for anybody coming in on the entry on that side of the map, but it's not happening at the minute. The Roteros are going in, looking to clear lines of sight and utility for Canadian. NJR takes them one step towards the finish line here as he gets a kill. Traded out by Fantasy, traded out by Pamba. It just continues. 1 for 1 for 1. 4 versus 3 now. DarkZero got themselves an advantage. Highs, he's trying to hold on to VIP still, and whilst he's in there, that is at least a point to the credit for FURIA. They're not likely to be pushed from both sides, but they have lost Hall of Fame, and pressure can mount on the Echo. If he's not careful, he might just overextend here.
Opening up that soft wall will get them a nice angle straight through into theatre, so whoever's sat inside there will not be able to cover against the push that's about to come. I don't think on the side of DarkZero they've currently got anyone looking to play on big window. All 3 of them are just looking to come pushing in through Hall of Fame. There's one pushing on towards 90 to give a challenge down here. Hyper already going to lose his life. One goes deep though, and they might be able to get a plant stuck down here as Pamba finds yet another. He's on a death march here, works his way through 3. DarkZero are going to take map number 1, 7 and 3, and FURIA have got some work to do.
Fantastic work from Pamba there. It was just a great triple at the end to be able to really power them over the line. I thought for a second when the Echo got on the flank, I don't really know how that happens. I'd have thought they should have been aware of him in VIP, but no. He was able to get down there, get himself one, but no, it was already too late. The trap had been sprung, and Pambazoo was in where he needed to be to get those final kills.
It's a very quiet game overall from some of the big players, I think, on the side of FURIA, right? Look at the Canadian here. Yeah, look at the boys feeling like, again, it's not really a big celebration atmosphere. They've won pretty comfortably 7 and 3, but some words being exchanged there at the end. Not strictly bad ones, but very impassioned ones is probably how it goes as far as describing it, Tim. They don't feel the job is yet done. They want to get through today because this, again, is the day where 8 teams are going home. It's the big judgment day for half of the teams that were remaining in the competition. Again, I can't really get past it. It just feels weird that there isn't more celebration, to be totally honest. I know there's a job to do, but boys, be happy. You've just won the first map very comfortably.
Maybe that's been part of the change though, Des. We've said that DarkZero have grown into the tournament. We've said that they've improved as time has gone on. We've seen better performances. And maybe it's just about a little bit of focus. Maybe it's about, you know, let's let all that stuff slide. You know, let's not worry about the hype and the passion. Let's just worry about getting the games won and let's focus in on them. And it certainly seems to be doing a job for them if that is the case. At the minute, they're playing, like you say, much more in a sort of a middle zone rather than being up there, and it's doing them well.
I'll go hunt down Troy in the restroom again to find out at some point after this game, you know, what's the reason for you guys being a bit calmer, and we'll find out exactly what the answer is going to be. But with all that said, FURIA have got some work to do. Not seeing the usual performance come up big. Was Coastline a warm-up map, and will they show up on Bank, or will DarkZero send them packing and take the 2-0? We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to the A stream, where we are partway through FURIA versus DarkZero. We have just come off the back of Coastline, where, let's be frank, Sim, and not beat about the bush on this one, DarkZero slapped him silly.
They did. No two ways about it. I think FURIA will be frustrated with their performance there. They started out well. They brought some good aggression. They got into DarkZero's faces. DarkZero figured out very quickly how to deal with that. And then were just on top of it. Simple as that. They were getting all the kills. They were picking up the clutches. There was just no stopping them. Is that going to be the same on Bank? I'm not too sure, because let's be honest, DarkZero, they got battered on Bank by Na'Vi earlier, so FURIA are going to be pretty confident coming in there. I think we could see a map 3, but before we go too far ahead of ourselves, let's have a look at our map 1. We've got the map summary, and we can see there's only highs who got into double figures, Des, and only highs who got into a positive rating for FURIA. It certainly wasn't the highs for any of the others. Eclipse, Pamazoo, 23 kills between the two of them. Very, very dominant. Excellent game from both of them.
So you can definitely make a very easy pun using all 5 names from...
You can just. I'm pretty sure Demo did it earlier.
It's so easy.
I'm pretty sure he did it on the first group stage.
I'm not surprised at all. Entry-wise, though, we're touching on, they are +2 on the entry despite losing 7 and 3. This is a similar story to what we had earlier on between DarkZero and Na'Vi, where despite one team clearly coming out the map winner, the other side was getting a good number of entry frags. Similar story for FURIA, which means they just cannot convert these rounds, and that is a problem. Lender was 1 and 6. You had Fantasy, it was 3 and 6 for the longest time. I think he ended 6 and 6, but he's your star man. And I'm not at all saying all the pressure should be on one player, but you need him to perform. He needs to be able to match up against the Clutch Master that was Eclipse with some big rounds in there, including a 4K and potentially a couple of Frost mats that may have helped things out in round 1. In we go to Bank then. FURIA starting on the defensive side, which means DarkZero acknowledging the stat line that this is the most attacker-sided map at the minute here at SI. They want to start on the attacking side of things.
Is this the moment that we see DarkZero have a really good Bank game?
Is it? No. I want to stop you right now for a second, Tim.
Okay.
You're not allowed to flame the hold for basement that's inside of open area.
What about if they try it twice and it fails twice again, so it's 4 times in one day? Because I think that's fair for me to say. I don't think that hold works at that point.
Maybe.
Flores not going to be our 2 bans coming in. I think DarkZero banned Knock earlier on Bank. As we said, not an operator necessarily picked up by the opposing team, but one for DarkZero's comfort.
Because they just get so rattled by it. I think they rely quite heavily on bulletproofs. We've seen Maestro, Evil Eyes. We've seen everything coming out to give them information. And Nook, obviously the perfect counter to that style of play. The Flores band definitely coming in against Canadian, who on most of the map earlier on, when they played it against Na'Vi, we saw a lot of Ying. We saw a lot of Flores. Canadian alternating between those 2 operators. If you want to play behind utility, play behind shields, for example, just getting it off the board is always going to be a sensible and sane plan. Last ban coming in is going to be Miro. We say this all the time, Tim, but those 2 defender bans are part of the go-to rotation that we're seeing in the bans these days. Wamai also up there as well. On the attacking side, though, the one to consider is that we do not have a Thatcher ban. So you're likely going to see that being brought out a lot. Maybe the other side leans into Kaid here and there, but don't expect it to become a commonplace thing. We're going to start out in the least played site. I think we went over the numbers earlier on, Tim. Was it 168 rounds of Bank have been played and only 8? Huh?
There was 8 that had been played here.
I'm saying in general.
That's 10 now.
Yeah.
Because they played it twice.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
No problem.
You've really got me covered. It was about 168 rounds in total, Tim, and 10 rounds of those have been played in Tellers and Archives. It is the least popular site by some margin to 3 or 4 times. It's the next site then being played. Can't quite remember which one that was. We were looking at the stats for Tellers and Archives specifically. But as we kick things off on here, Tim, we have got that Kaid being brought along. Hyper doing the Lord's work and bringing along the Thatcher just in case they needed to undo any roadblocks that might get in their way. Namely the Kaid, the Mute Jammer's also going to have a part in that. But you can't ignore, too, the fact that it's going to be able to wipe out a good number of magnets in a given area. And that's when the nades can start flying. The utility can come singing in and they can look for their execute.
The thing I would say about this site choice, and I'm going to talk slowly so I can check my notes as I'm saying it, is I seem to recall there was 2 sites, 2 rounds that were won by DarkZero on the attack against Na'Vi on Bank. And yes, I thought so. In round 3, Tellers and Archives was one of them. Na'Vi were able to defend it the second time around in round 6. But DarkZero, if you remember, had an excellent attack onto this, whereby they just went in the last 30 seconds and they just killed everybody in about 4 seconds. They just like postured and positioned themselves really, really well, and then just hit them all at once. It was really effective.
Just didn't do much else right on that map, Tim. Was a 7-2 scoreline.
It was one of the two positives.
It was one of only two, absolutely. Let's see how this kicks off, though. We've got Lender playing. I was about to say, maybe not quite the idea you're looking for there, I'd imagine. To chuck a C4 up into that spot. Up through the hatch might be more of the plan. This wall has been entirely electrified off, which should stop a push up from open area up towards the north. So what they are expecting is that DarkZero will push in through staff room, they'll push in through open area, and look to go for a plan up through the rotate. They've also got some control upstairs on the above, as you can see coming in here. Fantasy's playing on that. Doesn't want to contest downstairs just yet, I think, because his fear is that he might get pushed inside of Janitor. And he wouldn't be a mile wrong. There is Eclipse playing on the window. There was a man playing around square just a second ago, so he's being very passive in how he plays this.
Yeah, it's good so far from DarkZero. Patient again, as I'd sort of explained last time around, that they just got themselves positioned, waited. I'm not sure if that Selma went. Did it go too soon? No, I don't think it did. It survived. I was a little bit concerned it had landed at the wall before the EMP had detonated, which of course would have cost it its life. Now then, not really worrying too much about the top floor at the minute, DarkZero. They got away with it with Na'Vi. They basically took Dorky down inside of CEO, where Haz is playing now, and then from there on just pushed in. If you remember, it was the mirror, it was Blur on the mirror for Na'Vi that was playing in the same spot now in Janitors, but he was just left out in the cold, effectively. DarkZero looking to do similar, I think. They've got Miracle moved away and killed, and now they've got an opportunity to potentially push into sight. Eclipse is there on the doorway. He's ready to go. He's going to start getting this down. The cover is there for him as well, and Canadian just needs to hold that door, and this plant should go down.
And nothing they can really do about this outside of a big flank coming in from behind them. Flash is even raining through to make sure they got the cover. Pamba finding one into Fantasy, but by the looks of it, Furia living in a bit of a nightmare. There's not a clue as to what's going on. They see a man through the shells, and they do find the kill, bringing it back down to a 3 versus 3 as nades start to rain through. This is that flank I was talking about, but it's shut down from on high. Pamba getting one back, a 3 versus 2, Tim. I don't really see how they fight this one back outside of an absolute miracle.
No way Furia should be winning this. Haz has headed straight upstairs. He knows that there's cover from above. He's going to look to try and find Pamba, but he's probably going to struggle. Lender will go down. That's him effectively out of the round. Haz is not going to have an opportunity to retrieve him, and he's just looking to move down the square skylight. There's nothing else for it. He's out of time. That is the job done, and that's going to be round 1 going to DarkZero regardless of what happens here. Haz doesn't find anybody. DarkZero, a great attack, and this is why I wanted to pick up on it. I'm glad I got there quick enough. It was a site that they played well on attack against Na'Vi, and it's a site that they've just played well on attack against Furia, and it makes me wonder, Furia, you've obviously watched the match, you've picked bank, you've brought them to somewhere that they struggled, but you've gone to the site that they showed us that they can attack. Like, I'm not sure about that.
It was a really passive defense as well. I touched on Fantasy being shot with the sat with the shotgun inside of Janitors. And he was being very passive. He didn't feel the need to push out just yet. You know, didn't worry about sticking his head out of Janitor and trying to get a kill, for example. Just said, look, I got a hatch to play behind here. I can step across on that when needed. But DarkZero just hit the site. And for a team that are playing so passive, Furia doing very little to stop them actually getting in sight and going for a plant, with the majority of both teams still left alive. DarkZero with some good pace in round 1 and now going to slow things down coming into round 2. And Tim, maybe there's something to be learnt here, because they attacked this site earlier on. They didn't have the best success. They're getting behind the Monty of Canadian.
They're trying to do something differently. Like you say, they didn't have a lot of success. They struggled. I commented on it that Na'Vi were able to successfully defend this site twice over, you know, with a pretty standard hold of just keeping themselves down inside a site. They didn't try to do anything fancy. They didn't extend into open and staff. They just locked it down, and there was not much that DarkZero could do to muscle their way through it. So as you say, they are hoping to do something a little bit differently here. It's going to be probably, I would imagine, the old classic of push Monte into server and just try to bully his way in and just get the plant down inside a CCTV door.
Here we go. So really looking for where Canadian's going to start his march, and apparently it's up towards Tunnel. You've got a couple of members of DarkZero looking to push their way into Electric as well. So starting out with getting square cleared, stop any flanks coming down behind them, and then start to step their way forwards. Here already, you can see where the Monty's walking up to. I think he's got a smoke right in front of his face, mind you. So we'll have to eat a good chunk of that, losing already about 50 HP on the back away, Tim.
That was well played by Miracle there. He just baited him in up to a point where he knew that he was going to get an absolute lungful of it, and that is exactly what Canadian does. And it's in the place. He's pinged it out. He's been very careful edging forward there, so he knows where the canister is, and he's trying to bait him to detonate it now, but he's ready to dip away, and he takes a lot less damage from it.
It's so good because the fact that he's challenging on the angle means that no one can step up to shoot it out. They could maybe throw a nade in there, but do you really want to be doing that? I mean, Fantasy, again, just cannot find his way into this series. Shut down by Hyper with barely a knuckle moved. Far too easy for him. A second swing comes in. Pamba this time round. I tell you what, Tim, there's something in the water because DarkZero look on fire today.
Yeah, they're looking good, and it gets better and better and better. And I'm just hoping that they can continue this momentum beyond today. Canadian doing a little dance of death with Miracle. How does Canadian get away with that? Takes a ton of damage from the Toxic Babe, manages to do a little pirouette around the man, and then he loses his life on the bottom of service stairs. A nightmare for FURIA here, as this is a much better bottom floor attack coming out of DarkZero, and it has all pushed in behind that Monty. NJR manages to get himself a kill, and that leaves Highs all alone up above. Whether DarkZero are going to take the time, they can do if they want, to try and go in and have some sort of impact on Highs, but they don't need to. They've dropped the smoke, they get the kill. It's flawless from DarkZero. Where were this DarkZero on bank earlier?
It's a lot better, isn't it? And I think really the confidence from FURIA just doesn't overly look there. I like that they're being aggressive with the smoke. It was really cool play around the Monty, but around the map, they're just getting swung on. Like, again, Hyper barely lifting a finger to bring down Fantasy. Pamba with a great swing up towards Janitors. FURIA, when they play passive, are being pushed inside of sight and a plant's going down. When they're playing out on the roam to try and keep them busy, they're being swung on by two prolific fraggers on the side of DZ. And even when Hyper and Pamba are being quiet, you've got NJR putting up numbers. You've got Eclipse fragging out. What do you do when you're losing in every possible aspect of the game right now? It's looking shaky, and a 2-0 could be on the way if this keeps up, because FURIA in these last two rounds have barely come close.
Barely come close is a good description, really. Like you say, they've just not been able to have any sort of massive impact within things here, and it has been a tough one for them so far. They're going to move on to Open and Staff, and they've got the Maestro and the Alder to try and chew through a few bodies as DarkZero go on the attack. They're going to be trying to hold themselves down inside of Kitchen to begin with, I would imagine. That's where Miracle is going to start out. He's got his evil eye cameras there as well, and he's just going to try to make that his domain. We do see the occasional rush into this site. I'm not sure it's something that DarkZero will bring to the table, though. I think they'll be a little bit steadier about it.
What we normally see is a smash coming through onto that east doorway, the one just inside of the staff room. It normally gets castled off, for example. A sledge will come through, swing at the hammer, and they are inside. That's the most likely rush that you might see. More commonly, what I think you get coming out of most teams is you'll get control of square, you'll open up the large quad wall or triple wall, and then try and step your way through once you've cleared out the player, in this case Miracle, who's sat just behind it. So that will probably again be the big focus they're going for. It's a quad wall. I'm a total liar. That's the one we're looking for, I imagine, here, but it does mean getting nades over the top, for example, and that's where something like a Wamai or a Jaeger would come in, of which there are none in this round, Tim. So my question towards FURIA is, how are you keeping DarkZero at bay? Because I don't see the answer to that or any way of stopping these 6 nades from flying through.
Nope. As you say, it's going to be something that they can definitely do some damage with. Hyper is established on the square skylight now. He's looking to catch anybody out on the rotate through tellers. There's one having a little think about it. We can see the silhouette just on the edge of the ADS there. He's not going to push forward just yet, but Hyper, I think, is well aware that Rare is playing down there. First nade comes in, not going to do any damage, but the explosives will no doubt continue to fly. There's 5 more of them, and as you quite rightly pick out, there's no way of stopping them on the side of the defenders. 1 minute 45 left on the clock. No kills yet for DarkZero, but they've certainly got some good map control.
I was about to say, it's kind of a celebration moment for FURIA that they've lasted half the round without losing a single man. Doesn't mean that DZ won't just burst through their defensive lines here as we get later into the round. Canadian on a little swing, no idea that a guy's tucked in just off to the left. Has the inkling that there is one in here, probably seen him on a drone, but doesn't want to go swinging in too wildly, so he's taking it nice and slow. His only real job there is to stop the man from below, like chucking a C4 up through the hatch, for example. Solenda knows that he's under pressure, has to back away.
The droning continues down on the bottom floor. Does he find Lender? Yes, they see him and now need to deal with him, or at least cut off his method of getting back into sight. Eclipse is going to open up that quad wall, or he's certainly going to try in a minute. He's just looking for the gaps in the mute jammers. I think that's what the little walk back and forward is, to try and wait until the symbol disappears, and that'll tell him exactly where he needs.
Here we go.
Canadians here. He's going to dump them
in.
Bad timing from Fantasy. Nearly loses his life. Tries to push the door. Gets one. Gets two. Big play from Fantasy after taking that damage from the nade. And the exothermic will not detonate. And all of a sudden, this looks like a FURIA round.
So lucky there, I think, Fantasy. If that nade had been cooked for half a second longer, he'd be a dead man right now. Speaking of which, Hyper does get the shutdown. They've lost their two. They've lost their hard breach. But these two will not be stopped. They're marching their way through. Finding a couple for themselves, making it another. How do you stop this kind of play, Tim? They've just marched through sight and slaughtered FURIA where they stand. DarkZero with another round from seemingly nowhere.
Really, really important for DarkZero here to be gathering as many rounds on the attack as they can, because it was defensively that we saw those real weaknesses for them on bank earlier. They didn't win a single defense against Na'Vi. They didn't have too many opportunities, granted, because Na'Vi had themselves a good lead built up quite quickly, but they're going to have to do better against FURIA. But right now, they are absolutely slaying on the attack. Shouldn't have been winnable for them, that situation, Des. 3v5, quad wall not open, and just having to push in and find kills. FURIA have thrown that one away. I think they know it, and that's why they've gone to the tactical pause.
For Pamba as well to get 2 kills in 1 mag with the type, I'm just like, God. It's hard enough to do. It doesn't have many bullets, but it's walked away with an absolute slaughter there. 2 kills on the push in, not on an entry, but on a Hibana, on a hard breacher of all things. I think, as you say, Tim, they know they need a conversation here. Twister, a good galvanizing talk to the troops might be what's required to get them back into this half. High fives all around rather than fist bumps. They're ready to go for this one. You can see what he's doing. Again, getting them all gassed up and ready to go.
Getting that energy up. It's something that a team like FURIA feeds off. It's
still smiling as well.
Yeah. It's something that they feed off. It's that confidence. It's that energy. It's getting in and winning gunfights. And they are a team that can be absolutely lethal when they start doing that. The problem that they've got now is that DarkZero are only 4 rounds away from making it to the final 8 at the Six Invitational 2022, Des. When they started the group stages, that I imagine... Probably not, because all these teams are, they have super belief in themselves. But you'd have to think that it was potentially a bit of a pipe dream at that stage. If you'd have said, here's last 8, they'd have ripped your hands off at that point, because it was a tough start for them in the groups. But they've grown into this tournament. I've said this before, form is sometimes the most important thing. And the team who might not be on paper the best in the tournament can still come through and win it, because they have their best performances at the right time. And DarkZero seem to be building towards a crescendo here, because they're getting better and better.
That's exactly it. For FURIA, their go-to game plan down in the basement is going to be what we saw coming out of, I believe it was Na'Vi that played this earlier on. Smoke and the Chanka together, and a C4 in the back pocket of Rare. They're really looking to play the denial-based game here. And it was played beautifully by Na'Vi earlier on today. If you recall, Tim, they identified DarkZero as being quite slow. And when it got to that last 50 seconds or so, the Shumikers started piling in. When it got to the last 30 or so, Doki, who was playing FMG Smoke, started getting the smoke canisters out. They just played it so ridiculously well, and even in one round, we saw a 2K coming out of secretly with a C4. DarkZero should identify this as, oh, hey, we've already seen this once today, and here is where we struggled. What do we need to change?
Somebody was just racing up the blue stairs there. Thought they might just lose their life, but Miracle will hold short and just try to keep a hold of that. There you go. He's just up behind his shield up at the top. It was the speed he was moving with that just made me a little bit concerned there, but no. The angle had been held by DarkZero. They've got control of the map very quickly. They are happy that they can start opening hatches, I think. They've got themselves positioned on square skylight. They've got everything locked down.
Well, think about the one time this really fell apart for the side of Na'Vi on the style of defense earlier on was when they got a bit too aggressive out in the map. When Doki was roaming, when Blur was roaming, they didn't have C4s and smoke players on site, for example. FURIA are doing not exactly the opposite, but they are all playing in proximity to the site. Arguably, Miracle is currently the most risky, playing on the blue stairs with a shotgun. But outside of him, everyone else is dug back in and waiting for the push to begin.
DarkZero going to need to deal with blue stairs, and that is exactly how they do it. They open the hatch. Miracle doesn't want any part of it. He's on the smoke. He knows that his gadget is going to be very useful here, and that is an unfortunate attempt at a trick there from Rare. It will be unsuccessful, so he needs to dip back as well. Everything's going DarkZero's way at the minute, Des. They're doing fantastically well. Hatches are open. Blue stairs are theirs. They've got access to server. They can start thinking about potentially getting a plant down.
Absolutely, it's looking better. They've still got to chew through all that utility that will come out of FURIA, and this is the first Shumaka being fired out onto not quite the default spot, but pretty darn close. NGR with a nade trying to go deep. They're trying to blow at the player that sat at the back here, really looking in towards the artillery of the team. The smoke and the Shanka sat all the way at the back. But they can get it on through. That one falling a little bit short, and they catch out one of those two players. That will be the dream start for them.
40 seconds left to go here. Eclipse is just waiting for his moment. Pamba manages to find highs to open things up, but it's traded out immediately by Fantasy, and that leaves us in a 4v4. Time ticking down, and they're just trying to bait out more of that utility before Eclipse goes in for the plant. Is he going to try and stick it this time? No, he has to move away as the Toxic Babe canister starts doing its job. The Shumaka launcher just continues peppering this plant spot with that fire. Canadian, he's holding on to the door, and there's 14 seconds left here. They might have to go deep. There comes the smoke, and that's going to be Eclipse pushing into the bomb chassis. Hyper manages to get one. 3 versus 3. Eclipse just keeps going. He's going to be down though. It's a big quad for Fantasy in the round, and that's going to be the first defense for FURIA, and the volume is up already.
It's amazing that they can win, you know, one round there, being down 3-1, and still come out full of beans when they come away the victor. All of that coming down to Fantasy as well. A massive play when the smoke was going down, when there were C4s being tossed everywhere, when no doubt the comms were absolute chaos. He's got the composure to close out a big 4K and hand them their first round.
We're going to be heading into round number 5 then. DarkZero facing their first adversity on bank. It's been all their way so far in the first 3 rounds, but then in number 4, FURIA managed to get a first successful defense. I don't think it's going to knock DarkZero too much. They're going to expect to lose rounds here. They don't plan on going into the half 6-0, I'm sure, but if they could get a 4-2 or, dare I say, even a 5-1, it's going to be what will feel like a massive steal for them. Now, FURIA are going to go up to the top floor. This is not a site that we saw DarkZero attack earlier on because Na'Vi didn't use it, so it's going to be something a little bit different for them.
I like what we're seeing though. The Ying was banned away on the last map, and I really thought here we might see it employed a little bit more. Canadian though, rather than going over towards playing that, is bringing along something that DZ have played a few times on maps like Chalet. It's going to be that Capital. Similar sort of idea, only you force defenders to move where you can stand still and kind of eat up a full white screen. It's okay. You can toss a C4 whilst you flash, whatever. You can't do much about fire. You must move. Likelihood is they play on the windows here. Canadian smokes out the rotates, for example. One in towards Janitor, one towards the single hallway. They have one player hold the angle, and you then vault in and get yourself the plant down. The fire is also going to help make sure defenders can't push through certain bits of ground, so really good from DarkZero, but obviously we need to see it actually be used correctly. It's all good having these ideas and the intent. If you can't pull it off because you're getting spawn peep, because you're getting caught up in early engagements, or because you're wasting time, things can work against you very quickly.
They absolutely can. Absolutely can. We're going to move into the droning phase as NGR is just looking inside of the first 30 seconds just to scope out this defense, see where everybody is positioned. Is there any cheap picks? Is there any utility that's key that needs to be cleared out? And then he's going to get onto the windows to try and do something about it. Rare, he's holding himself inside of the office for the time being. There's 3 of FURIA on site here, so they're not too active in and around the top floor. They've got one in stock, I think, and then one inside of the corridor, but they're just holding the positions, waiting for DarkZero to feed into their angles for the time being.
Absolutely. Canadian's the one pushing up through lobby, so maybe it's an assault here coming in towards Banana, which is where Rare is sat. I know that he's there, but I guess the one thing you've got to worry about is, well, he can just move away. He can just run. I thought for a second we might see magnets coming out, but there's obviously no Wamai on side. NJR opening up on to Rare. A C4 taken off the board, and Rare's having a right stink at him. 0-5 so far.
I think he should have just run Des. He was saying it was a possibility for him, but he
I mean, yeah, that was the go-to. Just run. Forehead.
Fantasy manages to find NJR. That's a trade, taking him down off the rappel. They've still got Pamba up on the windows there, but that is a nice long angle there that Fantasy's managed to get that kill on. Not much presence inside of the map for DarkZero at the minute. That's my concern for this attack. 1 minute 10 left to go, and they still haven't really got boots on the ground. They've not managed to disrupt the defense enough to make it safe to move inside. So they need to be pretty careful here that they don't find themselves running out of time. They're getting a little bit tentative, and I just feel that maybe they've run out of ideas, and Lender's going to have an idea or two here if they're not careful. He's going to punish them. He moves underneath into Tellers. Explosion, but Hyper was ready. 4v3. Is he ready for the second? Yes. Great play from Hyper. Big double. Eclipse on the party. Closes it out with a double himself. And DarkZero, as I commented on earlier, same sort of attack out of absolutely nowhere. Mop up inside of about 5 seconds.
It's just so easy for them at that point, right? Like, I feel bad for FURIA because, again, it's not the wrong intent they've got, but when Hyper can swing you towards Janitor Corridor and just kill 2 without barely batting an eyelid, what are you to fight back? There is no easy answer, even with the entry, or the counter-entry, I guess, the trade being returned back by Fantasy. He's the only one currently in the server and delivering the goods right now. He's sat on 8 kills, but the rest of the team... there's 3 kills, Tim, between all the other 4 members across 5 rounds. You can't rely on one guy to do all the hard yards for you. Across DZ, it's far more balanced. It is just looking messy. Nothing to go on for FURIA so far. We need to see a turnaround now. They've already taken their tactical timeout. They've got 3 more chances. If DarkZero win 3 more rounds, this is done, and FURIA are out without barely giving a fight. That's what's kind of sad to say is they were ridiculously close against TSM, you know, really close maps. They lost 2-0, but it came down to being really good series that we saw between them both in the group stage and also in the bracket. Against DarkZero, they just haven't turned up to play.
Not at all, and it's sad to see, Des, in honesty.
Very.
You know, we never want to see a team, I said it earlier, we never want to see a team limp out of the tournament. You know, we want every single one of them. There can only be one winner, ultimately. You know, 19 teams are going to go home, but we want to see them all go out swinging, you know, really fighting for their spot. And internally, FURIA, you better believe, are fighting for this tooth and nail. It's just not happening for them, and it's a shame to see that that's sort of what it comes down to at the minute. I'm going to quote you back at you, Des, because I know you trust yourself more than anybody else. I know you'll believe me when I say it. It's a game of 2 halves. We've got to get FURIA onto the other half and see exactly how it looks when DZ are trying to defend. That's where they struggled on bank earlier. Canadian, however, he gets an opener onto Rare, and that tough game just continues for him.
It was a battle of the 2 zeros in a way, both on 0 kills in the map, but it's Canadian who comes out on top. Hyper into a second. I've already spoke about him so much, but he's 8-1 at this point, Tim. How do you stop him? He's playing on the flex roll. He's playing a Thatcher, for God's sake, and he's slapping them silly. It's ridiculous.
At least able to still utilise the Yokai drones. Highs is still alive, so able to relocate, ping out, get some information. FURIA needs something to go on here. They need a starter to get them on their way, but in a 5 versus 3 DarkZero, have got 2 minutes, and they're just going to hit the drones. They've got 8 of them left, Des. They've got all the information in the world. They're going to find these players, and they're going to make life a misery for them. Lender, however, he's able to laugh as he takes down Pambazoo, gets himself a headshot, and that brings it just a little bit closer for FURIA. Back in touch, 3 versus 4.
I was going to say, surely wants to get himself juiced up here. He's looking a little bit low. I mean, I think he's found his way through 1 as he's back up to about half HP. Was a little bit lower than that. There is still one more that he can run through and collect, I believe, up towards the other side. Sat on the on the quad roll that's been reinforced off, but not before first and foremost he finds a C4 kill, 2 in the round. And Lender, refusing to roll over and die in this round, refusing to let FURIA go out without a whimper, has brought things back to a 3 versus 3.
DarkZero desperately need to close this round out. They were 5 versus 3. They don't want to go into the second half defending when they've just come back out of a 3v5 loss, if that's how this one goes. So DarkZero need to knuckle down and need to find a way here. They're attacking into open and staff. They managed to get 1. It's Eclipse again. He's having a big game so far. He's going to be able to start getting that diffuser down as well. Spray down. Highs manages to do some damage. NJR finds Lender. It's surely in the hands of DarkZero now, as that plant will be successful. Eclipse has done so much work for this team against FURIA, and he just continues giving. It's going to be NJR that finishes things off, and DarkZero does. They're 5-1 at the half. They're absolutely cruising here.
Like I say, FURIA, it doesn't feel, have turned up to play. DarkZero 2 rounds away from moving on forwards. And we commented on it after the last game, Tim. We will have a new world champion. And you said, will we see DarkZero after that first map carry on all the way into the top 4, start threatening for a top spot? Admittedly, against a team that aren't really performing, it's hard to say, but they do look good. They have warmed up the longer this competition has gone on. Again, a really shaky first couple of group stage games where even when they were winning, many people were asking, what the hell is up with DarkZero? But the longer the tournament goes on, the better they seem to play. They're going to rip a strat out of Na'Vi's strat book here and bring along that Chanka and Smoke. Both teams employing the same strategy down in the basement. And on FURIA's side, we've got a Zero coming along, something that DarkZero were playing for the longest time in the NAL. Bit of a change of roles here, teams all borrowing away from each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say about DarkZero. As you were saying it, I think about it, and coming into this morning, do we think that anybody was probably really sort of scared of DarkZero? Probably not. Coming out of today,
are you?
I think they probably will be. And what a great turnaround for them. Like, you know, coming into the day, they felt like one of the teams that was sort of middle of the pack. They'd had bad performances, they'd had good performances, but, you know, they were beatable. And right now, they are just looking like a completely different beast. They're looking absolutely fantastic. They're coming into this first defense. They're not going to be trying to hold on to Open and Staff, I don't think. They don't have the castle and they don't have the mirror, but they do have Canadian Eclipse playing up there, which I'm a little bit worried about. They're trying to do it. It didn't work earlier, Des, and they're trying to do it with less utility. With the hatch open, it just feels like an invite to FURIA.
You know what I always say about this, Tim? If you're wasting time on the roam and getting back to site, you're drawing any kind of utility, and they've dragged nades out of the other side before to clear out mute jammers and things like that, of which, like you say, there are none in this round, so it's less utility, but they'll back away. They don't seem too phased about leaving this hatch open to give them a rotate back down to site. Eclipse, once again, is just sat on here hoping to pick up a drone or two. They've already removed 3 in the round, so it's not a bad start, but the more time he can sit up here, the more he can collect and then back away, the better.
I'm worried about the mental game for DZ. If FURIA manage to get themselves a couple of opening attacks here, you start thinking straight back to that Navi game and you start thinking we're going to struggle on the defensive bank again. So DarkZero need to close this one out as quickly as possible. I know they've got a 5-1 lead and it can feel like that's, you know, an awful lot, but they've got work ahead of them to do. They're going to drop back to site. 1 minute in, and FURIA have got control and they've got a hatch open for them.
They haven't got the control yet. He shot out a drone. They've committed 3 drones into trying to get open area control. He's killed off a couple and then drops himself away. Now that they've got it, they can get in and start getting things opened up. So there's no crazy janitor hole coming in. It's a pretty safe and secure way of getting back to site. Rare's going to step in towards the office now and get this hatch opened up. This is where FURIA can start looking towards their attack, but again, you're looking in towards the denial game coming out of DZ. You've got 2 C4s, you've got the pulse, you've got smoke canisters, you've got Shumikers. They've got so much still to play behind, and they still have control of the blue stairs.
They do still have the blue stairs. Work needs to be done by FURIA quickly because there's a minute left to go.
They're going to pinch him, he'll die.
I think they thought opening the hatch would be sufficient to move him, but it hasn't been. Pamba's committed to playing his life here. Hyper finds Fantasy. There's the pinch, but Pamba has a reaction. Surely not 2. Des, he's got 2! He's absolutely ripping. Oh! He tries to keep going, but Rare shuts him down. But what a cost! What a cost for FURIA! They are now frantically trying to get that plant spot open. Miracle's working the hatch, but it's a 2v4. And DarkZero, they can sit back and play their angles. They've got Troy just feeding the information back in from the pulse there. Miracle takes a drop. They should know about this, and the challenge will likely come in. Rare, he's trying to get that diffuser down. Miracle's doing critical work to try and hold it off, but no, it's all falling to pieces. And surely it's the end for FURIA. Rare manages to get 1, but he's going to need 3 more. Tachanka just making things difficult, launching Shumika cartridges into sight. Eclipse finds the final one, and that's going to be DarkZero on series point now.
They are rolling through them, Tim. And that blue stairs hold turned out to be everything they needed. Good presence as well from Pamba, taking the shot at the bottom, down in the 1-man. Not getting greedy and looking to finish it off, turns straight round to the top of stairs and finds the second onto the incoming Maverick. Really, really smart play, and I'm loving what I'm seeing from DarkZero. They've kind of adapted this strat to say, let's focus less on holding down open and staff. We'll still sit there, we'll still kill a couple of drones as they come in and then drop into sight, but our focus is going to be on blue. It's going to be on site-based denial, leaning into playing on that smoke Smoke and the Chanka. Really good adaptation, melding together two strategies that they've, one, used themselves, and two, seen others do. Their last potential sight of this series could be against FURIA, could be here in Staff and Open. And FURIA now leaning into the Capitale by themselves. It's going to be Rare bringing that one along in the round.
I'll concede half a point there, Des.
For what?
That there was a light attempt at open Staff hold that was dropped back to side, and they did have the hatch open. But what I will point out while saying it is, there was a lot less utility expended up there.
There were,
There was no castle, there was no mirror. They had more of the tools on site that they needed to be able to do what they did.
I like it.
So
It's optimal.
Adaptable, maybe a little bit of a middle ground that I can get on board with.
Is this where we're kind of shaking hands in the middle and saying, yeah, now it's good?
Saying it doesn't work when there's too much utility because you'll lose too much when you drop away from it. But if you just want to extend a little bit to waste a minute and a half, not necessarily the end of the world.
It's like I say, it's the melding together of strategies there that I think is really cool, and seeing that adaptability, the evolution, the growth, you know, change is good. And it's good to see it coming in and working wonders for them. 6-1 they sit at. As said, one round stands between them and the end of this series and a spot progressing through into tomorrow's games. They come up against the winner of FaZe against Elevate, who are currently playing on the other stream. And in case you missed the games prior to this one, it's Oxygen versus MIBR as the other lower round game. It's looking nice and spicy for our closing teams in this tournament.
It really is. I mean, a final 8 is going to be Team Liquid, TSM, Team Empire, Sonics, Oxygen, MIBR, and then the winner of this versus the winner of FaZe and Elevate. And that is a fantastic final 8, but a few surprises in there as well, I'd have to say.
We're just looking at
Pleasant
Empire.
surprises.
Empire just waving the flag like...
Come on, Empire!
It's definitely not as LATAM stacked as prior tournaments have been. And as much, you know, as LATAM fans love to see LATAM on top, and I think SI last year, the top 6 teams were all LATAM teams. It was ridiculous. Seeing a balanced like circuit where all various regions are competitive is the dream state to be in. Lender, great nade coming onto Eclipse to get things off and breathe a little bit of life into this FURIA side, but I wouldn't get too excited just yet.
Not very nice start for them. But yeah, to touch on your point there, Des, I totally agree with you. I think it's better when we have a mixture of regions. It's well known. I'm an absolute lover of LATAM, but you know, you don't want to see them just coming in and being the top 4, top 6, top 8 teams at every tournament. Every time through the year. We want that mix-up, and I came into this one saying I wanted to see, I was backing that NA resurgence, and they really are delivering for me at this tournament. We're going to have a number of their great teams. It's looking like 3 probably going through into that top 8, so nearly half of the teams coming from NA, and after the last year they've had, there's not many people would have predicted that.
No, especially not Sonics, who've been really delivering so far.
Here we go.
But, oh my god, it's the slaughter once again. 2 kills coming in. Like I said, you can find the entry. You can think you've got an advantage, and then DZ just rip it away. Rare getting one back onto NJR and shutting him out. High's a second. Is this the time when FURIA fight back? Apparently the answer is yes. Hyper has got it all to do. He's got the Roni in hand, but he's going to find the angle. Highs gets the shutdown. 3 left alive for the side of FURIA at the end, and they prolong what feels like the inevitable for at least one more round.
FURIA just always able to find something, always able to dig deep, never done until that scoreboard reads 7. That is the fact for them, and they are proving it once again. They managed to get themselves 1, but they've a lot more to find. There are no more mistakes for FURIA inside a bank. There are no more mistakes for FURIA inside of the Six Invitational right now, Des. They are fighting for their very lives in this tournament. One more round for DarkZero is all it's going to take, and they're going to be heading this time, DarkZero, to Tellers and Archives, but you just feel like they're just waiting for that basement defense to open back up again.
That's the thing, right? You've got to rotate through every single site here, which doesn't really fill you with inspiration. We tried Open, now we tried Tellers and Archives. Of course, always got CEO if they want to try it, but I get the feeling we aren't likely to see that coming through in this game. Hyper on the Oryx, we spoke about this combo you see a few times. You've got NGR on the Thunderbird to juice him back up so he can just charge around freely and live the fantasy that everyone has when playing on Oryx. You can just run through walls for fun without potentially losing yourself a bullet's worth of HP and really impeding yourself coming into a firefight. There he goes again, look at him. He's having a field day, mate, I'm telling you.
Absolutely charging round.
That's it, that's it. All these rotations being opened up.
We've got the corner stations being placed down. Interesting one there. It suggests that there's going to be a specific opening staff hold. Last time round when FURIA defended this site, we saw them just reinforce the wall off and just electrify it all and have nothing to do with opening staff. But DarkZero obviously wanting to play inside of there because otherwise the corner station is just free HP for the attackers.
Yeah, FURIA also played inside of Janitor. They had a man, I think it was Fantasy, sat up there with the shotgun and the hatch was open, but DZ have reinforced it off. So again, very big stylistic differences coming in. In terms of the effectiveness, time will still tell. They're starting out towards square, at least on the side of Fantasy and Highs. Lender's up on the window on the north side here to make sure they've got that top floor control. Probably want to get above there and make good use of the sledge that Highs is playing. Start raining some nades down below, clear out some utility. Start piling the pressure onto the defenders because you've also got that Capitao Tim who can smoke things off, burn the defenders away and keep them guessing as to exactly when their death will be coming.
Pamba just playing an important role there, but he's pushed out inside of 50 seconds with the aggression coming through from FURIA, and it was something we saw from them on Coastline, and it looks like something they're going to try to bring again.
Oh,
Fantasy's not one to try and back away from a fight. They spot the Oryx downstairs, and Hyper might just want to think about relocating himself after that because he's going to be pushed pretty quickly if they get the opportunity here. But I think the cover's in place that's just going to prevent that happening at the minute. FURIA sort of wanting to be aggressive, wanting to push forward, but they just keep coming up against obstacles.
I love that prox alarm, by the way, that was on the back of the fire sign, just outside the double doorway that leads in towards staff room. We'll give them a lot of information if it ever comes down to it that someone is about to press through the doorway. They did clock it and shoot it out, so not going to be effective in this round, but one to take into your rank games maybe. Let's see though, as this floor now starts getting opened up by Highs. We commented earlier on that he's looking to get in this position to force the defenders to get squirming, moving away from those key locations that they still want to sit in. And for the side of DZ, you can see them rotating freely into open here. They've got one out towards main stairs. They don't look nervous, Tim, or boxed in. They're very happy to challenge them directly here as this floor is getting opened up further by Highs.
Nitro detonated, but will not find its mark. 59 seconds left to go. Big first kill for Canadian onto Fantasy. That could be the beginning of the end for FURIA here. They've still got time, they've still got men, but that just keeps slipping away. NJR, big kill onto Highs. 3 versus 5 now. And you've got to say DarkZero are going to kick themselves if they let this one slip away. Miracle tries to make the challenge onto main stairs, does find a lot of damage, but Pamba ultimately able to find a kill onto Rare. 5 versus 2 now. DarkZero surely heading into the final 8. Lender finds an absolute freebie onto the crouch Pambazoo there. 25 seconds left to go. It's all up to Miracle and Lender, and it feels right now like FURIA are going to need a miracle, Des. They're going to need something special here. 2 versus 3. Here they go. Managed to find one, but time is running out. Diffuser's down cold. Hyper gets himself one. 3 versus 1, and surely this is it for DarkZero. Surely this is another North American team heading into the final 8 after another great performance. Miracle, he has to stick this, goes through, does Pamba, and he finds the final kill, and look what it means to DarkZero, and that has been a great performance, a great Tuesday from them here at Six Invitational 2022.
Some words a bit back and forth there by the looks of it from Troy, but for the rest of the team, yep, muted joy for sure. Again, they made themselves through in a very comfortable fashion. 7-2 on bank. They've rocked it from start to finish. It's good to still see a few smiles on the side of FURIA as well. They know that is not the performance of a champion, and they know they'll bow out gracefully here. DarkZero progressed through to the final 8, and not a line that I thought I'd be saying at this SI.
That's off to NA. That is the reality at the minute. 3 out of 8 teams, I think, are coming in from NA. Whatever happens on the other stream, of course, because that is LATAM versus APAC over there, FaZe versus Elevate. DarkZero have been one of the outsiders. They had a slow start, but they are picking up pace. They're like a boulder rolling downhill at the minute, Des, and I'm not sure who's going to want to get in the way of that one.
Not me, that's for sure.
Nope.
Do not want to be meeting them in your EU rank games, needless to say, but for them I know now they're in a position where it's like, cool, we've done the job on one, we've still got to find ourselves in a game tomorrow. That'll be at about 7 o'clock CET. That game kicks off, Tim. That will be against the winner of Elevate versus Rogue. What am I on about? Elevate versus FaZe, which is taking place on the other stream. Rogue got knocked out earlier on.
That already happened.
By Elevate. I'm still stuck in the past, apparently, but we're living in the now. We're living in the future. The future is now, Tim. Certainly. And it's one where DarkZero actually look like a really good team.
Don't they just? I mean, they've even just dispelled the demons of Bank. they got absolutely hammered there. It was no surprise that FURIA took them to bank after that performance against Na'Vi. They couldn't get anything going, but they just absolutely dominated them then.
I don't want to, like, dumb this down to the point of just saying it comes down to gunfights, but again, we spoke so many times throughout the series
won
where
a lot of them.
Hyper would just swing and kill 2 people, or Pamba. What was the round where Pamba and Hyper just go through and kill 4 people between the pair of them? Yep. One of them on a Hibana in 1 mag kills 2 people. You can't do anything about that, because no one says to you, oh, Hibana go and crouch walk into open area where there are 2 players and you'll definitely come out on top. It's been a day where the strats have looked good, but the gunplay has been top tier from DarkZero and no response from FURIA.
Absolutely none whatsoever. And DarkZero, they continue on through the tournament fight. Another day, they will be back tomorrow, and I cannot wait to see it. I really can't.
It's going to be such a good game. All the games are going to be good from this point forward, it's fair to say. We'll go to a quick break, and when we come back, our command center are going to break that game down for you. See